All right, welcome in everybody. It's the Monday edition of Bleav in Steelers going live this Monday morning. Welcome in. My name is Mark Bergin, sharing my thoughts from the AFC Championship and NFC Championship games. Before we get too far along into today's show, let me give you a roadmap and I'll tell you about today's presenting sponsor. I'll talk about the potential reunion of Russell Wilson with Pete Carroll in Las Vegas and what the Steelers do at the quarterback position. I'll also share my thoughts from Sunday's championship games. And now that we're into the Super Bowl, you've got Chiefs and Eagles. That is set. So if you want to get in on the Super Bowl action, BetOnline.ag is the place to do it. They're going to have all the player props, spreads, over-unders, live betting. Head over to BetOnline.ag to get into the Super Bowl action today. BetOnline, the game starts here. I want to start with this. If you watched last night's AFC Championship game, fourth quarter, the Bills go for it on a 4th and short tush-push play where it looked like Josh Allen got the first down with forward progress before he was driven back. And the line judges, one of them comes in from one angle, the other one comes in from another angle. Here's my thing. The NFL is a multi-billion-dollar business. So tennis uses this in-and-out replay system. I know that they use it in European soccer as well to determine if a player is onside or offsides in the other football and soccer. Why are we relying on chains and line judges, referees guessing where the spot of the ball is instead of using a chip and using the technology that's available? This doesn't make any sense to me, because you can make the argument that this morning that the Bills, if they go down and score up 1 point in the fourth quarter against the Chiefs and they go up 8 points, perhaps they go on and win the AFC Championship game and represent the AFC in the Super Bowl versus the Kansas City Chiefs. And if we're even talking about it to this level of passion this morning, I know that it's an issue. And I know there was still a full fourth quarter left. But if you're a Bills fan this morning, you've got to be sick to your stomach, because it was an entertaining game yet again. But to me, it looked like Josh Allen got the first down on that play and that he crossed the line. And I know that the yellow line is an unofficial marker. That's important to point out. But it looked like he got well past it. Like, forward progress is still a rule, yes. And they're having to go home for the fact that the line judges, too, again, came in at different angles. One came in where it looked like he got it. The other one was short. The Chiefs players were in the way. And here's the thing is, even if the line judges felt like they made the right call on the field, they can't definitively know that. Put a chip in the football to determine where it is, in which yard line it gets to. Because from the angles that I saw, it looked like Josh Allen picked up the first down. Now, credit the Chiefs. Steve Spagnuolo drawing up a cornerback blitz on the key play of the game, and Dalton Kincaid couldn't hang on. And the Chiefs have a really good defense. They're going to go for history. 3 straight Super Bowls. I'm not one of these people that says, oh, well, the NFL is scripted. I'm not one of those people. But it feels that way almost in the aftermath of the AFC Championship game. Some other thoughts, too. The Eagles, Saquon Barkley, the real MVP of the league. We're so quarterback obsessed. I don't know if we've ever seen a running back go on a run quite like this. And in the open field, he's terrific. Video game-like. And I'll say this, for as good as the Chiefs have been, in how as good as the defense has been for Kansas City, I don't know if anyone can stop Saquon Barkley. So going into this game, the Chiefs are going to be slight favorites. Again, if you want to place a bet on the action, betonline.ag is the place to do it. But I thought the Eagles were rolling on all cylinders. And I think they set a record for most points scored in an NFC or AFC championship game in the big win over the Washington Commanders. Washington was playing with house money. Rookie quarterback. I thought Jaden Daniels might finally take this team, a rookie, to go to the Super Bowl. But the Commanders couldn't get out of their own way. And Jaden Daniels, I thought, had a terrific season. Can't wait to see what he does in year 2. But Philly the Eagles are proven why they're one of the best teams in the NFL. Thought Hurts looked good. I thought the defense looked good by and large. And the Eagles, if they're able to run the ball like that against Kansas City, the only thing I would say is just don't abandon the run, because I don't think anyone's stopping Saquon Barkley in this smash mouth offense. That's the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, we'll get to this this Steelers discussion. Pete Carroll is going to be the next head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, and they're already talking about, could the Raiders sign Russell Wilson? The two were paired together in Seattle for a decade, and they won the Super Bowl. They should have won 2 Super Bowls if they would have given the ball to Marshawn Lynch back in the day. But I really think that this is a real possibility that this comes to fruition, because the Raiders have the 6th pick in the NFL draft. So here's what this means. Cam Ward is likely to be the top pick in the draft, to number 1 to the Tennessee Titans. And depending on where you rate Shedeur Sanders, I've heard some people would give Shedeur a 2nd-round grade, but he's widely considered the 2nd best quarterback in this draft. If that's the case, there's going to be a team before 6 that needs a quarterback. So I think then the Raiders are left with either let's go sign Russell Wilson and the familiarity he has with Pete Carroll and Pete Carroll's system, or I think maybe the Raiders go after Sam Darnold, assuming Minnesota doesn't bring him back. What happens with Sam Darnold? Sam Darnold might be the first domino to fall when it comes to the quarterback carousel in free agency. He's probably going to be the most sought after free agent quarterback in what's not a very talented class. But if you're the Raiders, you can't run this back after you fired Antonio Pierce. Your 3 quarterbacks, or your quarterbacks this last year: Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, Desmond Ridder, Carter Bradley. Now, it looks like Ritter's going to be gone in free agency. You've got Minshew under contract through the 2026 season. Aiden O'Connell you have under contract until the 2027 season. So Minshew becomes a free agent in 2026. O'Connell becomes a free agent in 2027. Carter Bradley, you're paying him less than $1 million, so it doesn't really matter. If you're the Raiders, you need a quarterback, and you need a quarterback relative to the teams in your own division. Now, do I think Russell Wilson's going to take you over the top in a division that also has Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and Bo Nix? No, but I do think it could be better than what you had this past season when it comes to the quarterback position for the Las Vegas Raiders. I think it makes a lot of sense in the world. How much Las Vegas is willing to pay is something Pittsburgh's going to need to consider. Is that figure going to be 30, maybe north of $30 million per year? Or is it going to be in the $20 million range? What is Russell Wilson's value on the open market? And if I'm Omar Khan in the Steelers front office, I'm prioritizing re-signing Justin Fields over Russell Wilson. But you can't walk away empty-handed. And look, if you're the Raiders, maybe Fields is the guy you want to go after. Steelers have to be really strategic, and they cannot walk away empty-handed. You have to bring back either Wilson or Fields. It really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things which one you do. I'd rather give Fields that opportunity to see if he can be a franchise quarterback. Sign him for, say, a 2-year deal, maybe with the team option for a 3rd year, with hopes of, hey, you're going to have the opportunity to make this work into be the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if it doesn't, 2026 is when you try to load up if you're Pittsburgh. Because the Steelers pick at number 21, they're not going to be able to position to select a quarterback that's going to be the game-changing franchise type guy. And I know that you can get a quarterback in other rounds of the draft, and you can draft and develop a quarterback. But if you want the true blue chip talent, that typically goes in the 1st round. And I don't want this shoved back in my face of, well, what happened with Kenny Pickett? It was a swing and a miss, next at bat. You had to do that if you're Pittsburgh for the fact of you're trying to find out who the quarterback of your team is post Ben Roethlisberger. Mason Rudolph, Duck Hodges, Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph again. It hasn't worked, but you have to be able to go get a quarterback. And that's whether you think Mike Tomlin's the long-term answer as a head coach or not, because you have to have the horses to get you there. Look at the 4 quarterbacks that played this weekend: Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, Jaden Daniels. Those guys aren't going anywhere. I mean, you got to go beat Mahomes. That's the bar right now. If you actually want to go to compete for Lombardis, to go compete in the AFC. And so perhaps the Raiders will try to go get Russell Wilson, reunion in Vegas. I could definitely see this happening. And if I'm the Raiders, I approach it of, could we get Russ on the cheap? Anything shy of $30 million per year, I'd probably do. And if not Wilson, I'd either go after Fields if I were the Raiders or Sam Darnold, depending on how much money Sam Darnold's going to garner in free agency. And if I'm the Steelers, assuming you're bringing back Arthur Smith, you have to re-sign either Wilson or Fields, one of the two. The Steelers are going to have about, it's going to be north of $50 million in salary cap space in free agency. And so as great as it would be to say, let's re-sign Wilson and Fields and run it back for another year, the reality is I don't think you're going to have the salary cap space to be able to do it. Now, I know you can free up more money and restructure contracts, and it's not that big of a deterrent, but the Steelers have a ton of other needs when it comes to improving their roster. Okay, you got to figure out the wide receiver position, whether you're bringing back George Pickens or not. I personally would. I wouldn't want to trade George Pickens for 30 cents on the dollar, despite some of the frustrations you had when it comes to some of his shenanigans. Because if you trade away George Pickens, perhaps you're creating another problem. Like, who are your cornerstones offensively if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers on the offensive side of the football? Maybe there's Zach Frazier, or if you're really high on Broderick Jones, Mason McCormick, I thought played well, but like I'm talking about the true blue chip players that you know would start on other teams. Who are those foundational pieces on offense? I'd make the argument that you don't really have those players right now. That includes Pat Freiermuth and George Pickens are probably your best offensive skill position players, along with Najee and Jalen Warren. But can you definitively say, and when I'm talking about a blue chip cornerstone caliber player, would those players definitively start for other teams? That's the level of caliber player that I'm talking about. So how this relates back to the quarterback position is if you have, Bleav it's like $53 or $54 million in salary cap space. If you have to allocate $25, $30 million of that to the quarterback position, that limits your ability to bring in other players that are desperately needed on this team. Offensively and then defensively, you're going to need a defensive tackle because Cam Hayward's in his mid-30s now. And then you're probably going to need another cornerback opposite Joey Porter Jr. If we're just being real here of what the needs are of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And yeah, you need a quarterback at the same time. But at number 21, given those other needs and given how the rest of this quarterback class ranks, it's going to be fascinating to see how all of this shakes out of when the dust settles. Where are all the different players? I know Russell Wilson has said he wants to be back in Pittsburgh, but for what price? And whether it's Wilson or Fields, again, in the grand scheme of things, I think the Steelers have to load up their assets to try to make a big swing in the 2026 offseason. Whether that's trading up, whether that's bottoming out, or whether that's making a blockbuster trade. Because good quarterbacks don't typically hit the free agent market. Good to great to elite level quarterbacks I'm talking about. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, look at the premium that Kirk Cousins made last offseason, got benched by the end of the year by Michael Penix. So those are the stakes if you're the Steelers. Whether it's Wilson or Fields, I think that's a bridge to whoever the next guy is. I would give Fields every opportunity, whether it's Wilson or Fields. I give Fields every opportunity to try to make that work next season. I would. But again, other teams might drive up this price for both quarterbacks. For what price are you talking about? But you're going to need somebody. If you're the Steelers, the worst case scenario is you're left with nobody at the quarterback position. I don't imagine that'll happen. I think either Fields or Wilson will be back in a Steelers uniform in 2025. Which it is anyone's guess. I'd prioritize Fields. Wilson would be my second choice. But when you're talking about actually trying to win a Super Bowl, I really don't think it makes much of a difference of which of the two it is. And I'm not talking about 2025. I'm talking about bigger picture 2026 and beyond. I'm already thinking that way from the Steelers standpoint and trying to get and solve who your franchise quarterback is and not just trying to patch it together. Wilson and Fields outperformed their contracts relative to what Pittsburgh paid them this season. It was less than $5 million combined. When you're allocating more of that salary cap to the quarterback position, whether it's either guy, that limits your ability to make other improvements that are desperately needed on this roster and on this team right now. So that's why I think that the Raiders could go after Wilson, to where Wilson serves as the bridge in Las Vegas. And the Raiders could then draft a quarterback in later rounds. Might not be the guy that they want at number 6. They get another quarterback in later rounds and then say, hey, Wilson's the starter to start the year. And then whichever rookie we bring in, we can bring him along. But I think the Raiders are in a similar situation as the Steelers in a certain sense. But the thing that is the draw to bring back Wilson or Fields is, assuming Arthur Smith is back, you have that continuity of being in another year of the system versus having to go learn a new system in Vegas. So that would be another thing, is that familiarity with the system, familiarity with a lot of the personnel that will be back. And I do expect the roster to be different in some capacity if you're Pittsburgh. How much so is anyone's guess. It's anyone's guess. My name is Mark Bergin. This has been another edition of Bleav in Steelers. Just a Monday reaction again. We'll see what happens with the Super Bowl. My gut feeling tells me that the Chiefs are going to three-peat, but I really like Philly's ability to run the ball. I'll have more thoughts as we get closer and closer to the game. We're going to have a week off of football and then gearing up for the Super Bowl between the Chiefs and the Eagles. If you're watching this after the fact, let me know in the comments what you thought of that fourth down play with Josh Allen and the Bills. The ref said that he was short. Bills were up 1 in the fourth quarter. I really think it's time that we adapt to technology, put a chip in the football to determine the spot of the ball versus the current system that relies on referees and line judges to try to determine where the ball is in a scrum that is the tush push. I would be gutted if I were a Bills fan this morning. Again, there are several other plays that you could point to, but I thought that was a key moment in last night's game, to where if the Bills go up 8 points, perhaps it's a different ball game. We're talking about a different Super Bowl matchup. But those are my thoughts. Again, my name is Mark Bergin. I want to thank today's presenting sponsor, BetOnline.ag. Again, they'll take care of your Super Bowl needs on Apple and Spotify. If you're not subscribed already, really easy to listen to this show on the go. We've got great insight, analysis, and guests. And also, if you haven't already, on the Mark Bergin YouTube page, hit that subscribe button. Again, my name is Mark Bergin. Thanks so much for watching Bleav in Steelers. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care. So long, everybody.